Hello, welcome to another episode of What Are You Selling with me, David Green. And today I am delighted to be joined by the author of Ian's Realm Saga, but many other things as well, not just that one. That's just the one that I have in my notes. DL Gardner, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, and thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you for coming on. Whereabouts in the world are you joining us from?
I am in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, Washington State, Kitsap County. It's along the Puget Sound, very beautiful area. Lots
Yeah.
of forest and farmland and ocean, and yeah, it's really pretty here.
That's cool. I have a book series set in the Pacific Northwest. I've never been there, right? I'm one of these people that have seen it a lot on like TV shows, like Twin Peaks and like other things, and came like kind of like, well, this place seems like really really cool. Research it. So like I know nothing about it other than what I've read and seen in media, but I always like to go there.
Yeah, that's funny because I have a book that I wrote about Ireland, and I've never been to Ireland, but it's a historical fantasy. And back in 1920, when the Irish were fighting the British.
Yep, I know.
Yeah, I did a lot of research for it, and I felt a lot of compassion for the Irish, but I never did.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, how you get that connection with a place that you've never been to. I like it, and it inspires you, and you kind of look into it. Like the Irish thing there with that, it's a great civil war, which is essentially what it was. Is a great thing to set stories in, and obviously with me, I have Irish parents, but I also have one parent is Irish and one parent is English, and I live in Ireland now, but I grew up in England as well, so I was very much like very aware of English Irish sentiment about certain things growing up. But yeah, it's a great fertile ground, especially then with the Irish Fae and the Tuatha and all that kind of stuff. And would you like to, I presume that you would like to come to Ireland at some point in the future?
Oh, it would be wonderful, sure. Absolutely.
Is there anywhere in mind that you'd like to visit in particular? Or
I don't know anybody over there, except you now.
Yeah. It's funny the amount of people that now in the last couple of years where I've kind of started writing and stuff, and they're like, when I come over to Ireland, I'm going to say hello to you. The funny thing is, it's small enough where you could do it no matter where you go. You could just come over to Galway.
Yeah, that's weird.
So you're a very prolific writer. You've got a great body of work behind you. Where did you first fall? And we were talking before we came on about Wheel of Time. And by the way, for people that are watching us on YouTube, or you listen to us on Spotify or Anchor FM or Apple Music, if this is your first time tuning in, please do subscribe to us or follow us. On the channel, we have lots of author interviews. We have live readings. We're about to start doing roundtables pretty soon as well. But we also have the Wheel of Time show, Easing the Reader. So do check all those out. So we were talking about a little bit about the Wheel of Time before we started. And people that will know me will think that is no surprise. But it was actually you that brought it up. Right? So what are some of your influences in reading?
My influence in reading? Well, actually, yes, Robert Jordan, of course. I just love the way he describes, gets you into his world. And he's just so articulate with everything that he describes and where you're at. And I like being immense in a story. I like to just live there, and with 14 books, it's easy enough to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so I did get a lot of inspiration and technique. I think I'm trying to learn some technique from the books that I write, from Anderson and Jordan and Abercrombie and some fantasy writers such as they, mostly to get the world building. And I love characters. I have always loved characters. I've done some psychology classes in college and studied people, and just enjoy learning how people react and, you know, what makes them who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I've always put into my books because it's, you know, it's a character driven. But the world building is, well, it's not new to me now, but when it was new to me, you know, I had to learn from others who do really wonderful world building. So yeah.
Sure, yeah, because there is it's a real skill to do it well. Because I mean, you talked about, you know, Robert Jordan and Sanderson, J.R. Obviously, Tolkien is
Right.
is the probably the number one for it. But you do get a lot of more kind of, and not just inexperienced writers, but you do get a lot of writers that kind of just do an info dump on world building, and it's none of it really serves the story. And then to get that trick of doling out the information when it is important to the story and important to the characters, how do you go about doing that?
Oh, well, I take a lot from my own experiences as well, too. I lived out in the desert for 13 years and, you know, without electricity or hauling water next to the Navajo reservation. And I have a lot of experiences, you know, with horseback riding, riding in wagons, you know, building mud huts. So I can put all of that experience into my stories as well. I'm a nature lover, you know, so almost all of my stories take place in countries more than cities. You know, I could probably have more difficulty writing city stories than I do country stories.
Right.
But, you know, starting a fire with flint and, you know, that sort of thing, that, you know, that comes natural to me.
Okay.
So, you know, so yeah, it's a lot of life experiences and then also doing a lot of reading as well. So
yeah, excellent. So what kind of things do you enjoy reading? Because obviously, I mean, you write fantasy, but you also do historical fiction with fancy flavors. You do you have you know, you won awards for your urban fantasy series that you have. You do romance as well. So what kind of things do you enjoy reading yourself?
reading, I like I say, I enjoy reading fantasy. But in classics, I read a lot of classics too. You know, I've read a lot of Michener. I love his books because he brings you into the world. You know, even though they're historical worlds, you know, you're right there with them, and those are the kind of books that I like to read. That, you know, just absorb. I don't read a lot of romances, but I do like putting romances in my stories, and I always put some kind of mystery in my stories as well.
Yeah.
You know, just helps move the plot along, you know.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No one wants to read about someone who knows everything already.
Right.
So when did you start writing?
Okay, well, I did do a lot of poetry when I was young, you know, and I also wrote short stories, and I wrote a lot of essays. I loved English because and actually social studies because I could write essays, and I, you know, probably wrote more, I don't know, more novels in my essays than I did actually fact, you know. but so I've always had that compassion for writing. But I started writing novels in 2000, I think it was 2010 is when I started writing. The first one didn't go over very well, so I just stuffed it in a drawer. But then I wrote Ian's Realm, the first book of Ian's Realm, which was a trilogy at the time. It was 3 separate books. But I got my inspiration. I'm also a painter, by the way. I paint oil paints, and I have a studio, very large studio, and it's just filled with paintings. And one day I looked at all my paintings. And I said, "Why am I painting another painting? I have all these paintings." So I thought, you know, maybe I'll start writing because you know, my kids are grown. You know, I'm a grandmother and a great grandmother, and I have time on my hands. So I thought, you know, now is the time when I can write that novel that I wanted to write. Sure. So at the same time, I decided to paint a picture of a dragon because I had never painted a dragon before, and I always wanted to, and I didn't have an excuse to. But with writing a novel, I had an excuse to paint a dragon.
Okay.
And I was painting it. The story of Ian's Realm came to me of who's gonna tackle this dragon, and you know.
Right. Okay. That's how it inspired you. So the art came first, and then came from it. Interesting.
Yeah.
And is that how you usually work? Do you usually create an image first and then work from that? Or
Not anymore. Not anymore. No, that was the first time and pretty much the only time.
right, okay, okay. But it gave you the start, and so Ian, the first book of Ian's Realm was, apart from the one that you shelved or drawed,
Right.
I think is the word. So that gave you the start, and then you just kept on writing from then onwards.
I did. I have 6 books in Ian's Realm now. I started with book 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then I went back and did 2 more books. I call them 3.1 and 3.2
Right.
because
Yeah.
back to Ian's adventure. Book 4 and 5. Book 5 is his daughter 18 years later, and book 4 is mostly another character from the Ian's Realm story, and we go off, on a spin-off sort of from that.
Excellent. I like spin-off.
So I had reviewers were saying, well, we didn't want Ian to leave the realm. So I said, okay, I'll take him back one more time.
The Sherlock Holmes, the Arthur Conan Doyle problem. It's like your character is too popular. People won't accept that it's the end. I like that though. I do enjoy a really good, well-built world where when a storyline is finished, there is still room to go and do another story there.
Right.
But only because that story is ended doesn't mean that the whole world is finished.
Right.
Unless you've destroyed the world in the you
I
could do.
haven't done that
yet. It's the only way out of it, I suppose. But and I suppose there's always ways around that too.
Yeah.
So forgive me if I'm wrong, but from what I can gather, you have about 28 books, published works at the moment.
No, I have more like 17 or 18.
Okay.
I do have some short stories, that some of them haven't been published. I actually just got done doing a coloring book with 2 short stories in it and some illustrations that I drew, sketches that I drew that it'll be out this week.
Oh, that's excellent.
I had a lot of fun doing, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So you're always creating, you're always looking for something to do.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
am. Yeah, and also right now we are writing a screenplay for Ian's Realm too. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
And how are you find that? Because I've worked on screenplays before, and I've worked on adapting an not one of mine, but an existing property into a screenplay. Something that I'd read and I liked, but I didn't have any great kind of love for. Nothing that I was like losing sleep over, saying, okay, I have to make this decision or this decision or lose this character. It didn't, give me the sweats or anything like that, which other series probably would if I had to do it, right? But it's still tough. It's still a really difficult thing to do. How are you finding doing it with your own property?
But I'm working with another screenwriter, and he wants to go very much by the book, and I keep saying, no, that's a flaw in the book. We have to change that, So it's me wanting to kind of go a little bit away from the story, not the story, but some of the things, the way it's written,
Yeah.
to improve it. But yeah.
Remix it.
Yeah.
It's a different medium, isn't it? That's part of the thing. We were talking about Wheel of Time earlier. That's part of the thing that I enjoy about adaptations is seeing a fresh take on it in a little bit. Like I like seeing the same beats of the story, but then I like to see it played out in a different way because I've already read the book and I've probably read the book several times.
Right? Yeah.
And do you enjoy writing screenplays?
I've only written screenplays from my novels because the story's already there. I don't know if I could actually just sit down and write a screenplay alone, and include the entire story. I have to write the novel first and then, and then adapt it because there's so much more to writing a novel that I enjoy.
Sure.
I think it would be hard to just write the screenplay. I do know someone that writes the screenplay first and then he writes the novel, but that would be more like an outline or something, it seems like. But
yeah, like so he gets the kind of story, so he treats the screenplay as kind of the bare bones of the story, then fleshes it out into a novel.
Right.
Yeah, I can see that, but yeah, I'd kind of think I'd frustrate myself doing that a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Go off on a tangent or something like that. So what is it you're working on at the moment? Of now the coloring book is
Right.
finished.
I have another series that I finished last year. There's 3 books to it, and it's called Sword of Chonisi.
Mhm.
And it's not a young adult like Ian's realm. It's a little bit for more mature audiences. And I have a book that's coming out in April, which is book 4. Um, book 1 through 3 is a complete story arc, and book 4 takes the same world and some of the characters and goes in a different direction with it. But it's called Darkness Holds the Sun, sun spelled S-O-N, and it'll be out in April 14th, I believe, is when I have it, the launch date.
So what is this series about? And so, like, obviously, because we want people that are listening to us and watching us to go, okay, that sounds interesting. Let's go to the book. Let's go to book 1 and check it out.
Okay, yeah. So Sword of Chonisi starts off with a young, not teenage princess who wants to be a warrior, and she joins with her brother's army. Her father's the king, and she ends up making a huge mistake. She ends up killing the king of an island whose magic they need to win the war.
Right.
So she has to, she feels in her heart that she has to make amends. And so she goes to this island, and she ends up falling in love with the heir he doesn't know that she's the one that killed his father. And so there's some friction there. And when he finds out, it starts off as an enemies to lovers story, but
Yeah.
then book 2 and 3 complicates things because they still have this enemy that they have to tackle, and can they do it together or not?
Yes. Yeah.
So
It's always great to put some kind of conflict between your main characters like that.
yeah.
So that the first 3 books wrap up the story, and then
Yes, they wrap up that particular story.
so book 4 is same characters, but
Book 4, well, we have just a mention of the characters in the first 3 books, except for the heir to it's actually Erica's brother, the prince that becomes king because her father dies. And I don't want to give spoilers away, but I just did.
yeah.
But he's in the story, and then we have a new character who is a mercenary. His name's Jareth. And what's happening in that story is that Jareth is looking for work, of course, and there's no wars, so but his son has seizures, and it turns out that the seizures are caused by black magic, and he sets out to find the source of that, and he ends up going into this place called the Neverworld, which is underground and a very mysterious and evil place. And he finds out that his child, he has 2 children, both of his children end up being kidnapped, abducted into this Neverworld. But then they find out that all of the children of the kingdom are being coerced into this Neverworld, and they're forming an army with them to overtake the world, or the kingdom. So that's the story. That the king, his nephew, Erica's son, who Erica is the princess from the first book, her son is also having seizures, and so the king becomes interested in what is going on, and he ends up meeting Jareth, and they go off together to look for their children.
Sounds like the scope of the world is opening up quite a lot in this 4th one.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, the cover for Darkness Holds the Sun is incredible as well. It's a beautiful cover. Do you get involved in the making of the covers?
Yes, actually, for Ian's realm, that's my dragon that I painted. That's on the cover.
Okay, right.
And the covers for this Sword of Chonisi, I hired an artist in Italy to do the drawings and the paintings, and then I put in the fonts and the copy. So yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The one they're all great, but the one for Darkness Holds the Sun is really, really good. It reminds me of, I don't know if you're a video gamer or have you ever played them, but there's a video game series called Fable, which I love. It's on the Xbox, and it reminds me very much of that. Which it definitely, if I saw it, it'd be something that I'd definitely pick up and look at it for sure. So how do you see? So well, it's book four, but in essence, it's book one of a new story in the same world. How many are you looking at a second trilogy for this one?
I don't know. I don't know. There's, right now I still have to edit, So what happens after I get everything all, launched? I did a Kickstarter last year too, so I'm kind of on a deadline, and I have to get these books out to the people that pledged. So that right now is, it's the marketing and the publishing that I'm concerned about right now before I can sit back and write another book. I did write all three of these books for Sort of Chornisi in 1 year, and I enjoy doing it like that, but it's it's pretty intense, and so taking a break from writing helps, start forming things in my mind to, where I want to go with it. But I do love the world of Chonesi. I've got the island, and I've got the empires and the kingdoms, and there's a lot of area up north that we haven't gone to yet, so.
I predict there'll be more books. I can see it already. I can see the cogs turning there already when you're talking about it. So from the answer that you're not sure yet, I presume that you are more of a pantser than a plotter. Would that be?
No, I do plot. I do plot.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I do. I do the premise first. I like to do a log line, and then start, finding my characters and who's going to be conflicting with each other. I do a lot of plotting before I even sit down to write. The writing is the last thing that I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what comes first when you are starting doing the outline? Is it the story first, or is it the characters first?
Well, I might be, by the time I outline, I already know who the characters are. And every once in a while, I'll throw in a new supporting character or a new, supporting villain, or, as the story goes along, especially if it seems to be too linear, I want to put in, some subplots in there. So that in a way might be pantsing it. I don't know, but it all goes into the outline before, I write the chapter.
Right.
But I will, I'll put, I'll do my conflicts and the story, and then I make events that, how are we going to get from here to here? How's this character going to, what's this character's arc from here to here? And I have all these events that have to happen, and each one of those events become a chapter. And I'll write in each, at the beginning of each chapter on my Word document, what's supposed to happen in that chapter.
Yeah.
And then write. So, so I guess it's kind of a combination of plotting and pantsing, because once I get to the chapters and I know what is supposed to be in them and where we're going to go with them and the arc of that chapter, then I just write, and then it just happens. So
yeah, a planter. That's what I am. That's why I'm in the middle. The way I look at it is like, I'm like, here's the garden, okay, and I'm like, I'm at the start of the garden's path, and I need to get to that gate, and there's a big tree, and there's a pond, and there's a slide, and I have to go on all those three things. But how I get there, I might take a bit of a detour at some point, but I will do those things and get to the gate. So that's the way I kind of look at it. I was working on a book recently, and I was going through my outline, and I went through. I don't update my outline as I'm working on the book. I kind of like to look at the outline when I've finished and go, wow, that's quite different, or whatever. And I just went on this huge tangent that wasn't in the outline, which I think is my favorite part of the book. I had so much fun writing it, and I think I couldn't imagine the book without it anymore, because I think it's a nice detail, but it's completely. It was just from one line in the outline where it was like, this character goes to this place, and then there was nothing else. So when I got to it in the outline, I was like, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was 100 pages of this subplot that came out, and I'm like, well, that's just the way it is sometimes.
Yeah.
So you said before that obviously you're in the editing stage at the moment, and then the marketing stage, which takes up a lot of time, and it's fun, but also it does take up a lot of time. And you're taking a little small break from the writing. When do you think you'll get back into writing something?
Oh, probably May. I'll probably be done with, the major part of my marketing, get all my books out to my Kickstarter pledgers. And I do want to do another Kickstarter. I do have, I have another book that I have to write for Ian's Realm because I never really finished the story.
Okay.
But I don't know if I'm going to go back and do it or not, because I have this other story too. So, so we'll see what happens. I don't know.
You have to get a co-author and just be like, you go and write this and I'll read it and I'll make notes on it.
Oh, that's fun.
You could always
That's
do
what
it. Yeah. I sometimes think it would be fun to do a book with another author, and just to see how that would work. I think it would be quite fun. How would you? I'm not propositioning you or anything here, but
that would be fun.
but is that what would that be something that would appeal to you, or is it just like you need to be able to be like, no, this is I have complete kind of ownership over.
I think it would be fun because I love brainstorming with other people. But I think in order to do that, you have to be a really good match as far as your writing goes, and you'd have to be of one mind on
Okay.
what you want your story to turn out to. But I think it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just fascinated with it. I'd just love to. I'd love to see how it works. I've spoken to some people that have done it, and I spoke to some people that are very kind of like, so this person does the dialogue, this person does the descriptions, or this person does action scenes, this person does other ones, and I've
Right.
spoken to some people where it's like this person does the first two chapters and the last two chapters, and the other person does the rest. Right, and it's always just like a different way of doing it. And I'd just be I find it quite fascinating because
Well, I would want somebody to do all the fighting scenes for me.
okay, yeah. Because writing is a solitary thing, by its nature. So it's nice to kind of have that other person come in, I suppose, and bounce ideas off.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on and talking to us about yourself and your work. Where's the best places for people to find you on the internet?
Okay, I have a website and it's gardnersart.com. And I have all my links on my website. So that would be the best place. I also am on Books to Read, D.L. Gardner with D.L. Gardner. And I do have an Amazon author page, but my website is probably the best place to know what, to subscribe to and learn what I'm doing. And I'm on Patreon and I'm on Substack. I have newsletters, so all those links are available on my website.
And for anyone that is watching and listening to us, all the links will be in the show notes. So please do check that out. Say hello, check out the work, and let Diane know what you think about it all. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you.
And best of luck for the book launch and for 2022. And for everyone who stayed with us until the end, until next time.